evening, everybody. This is Divided We Stand. It's Saturday night. We greet you again. If you're unfamiliar with this channel is called Divided We Stand. We also have a group page on Facebook called the Divided We Stand group page. We are not monetized, so we're not asking for anything from you. We just ask that you subscribe to the channel on YouTube or become a member of Divided We Stand on Facebook. That's it. Well, it looks like we got in a little bit late today. A little bit of an issue with the hard drive, but we're okay now, and I see people are starting to come in, so welcome. And without any further ado, as I usually say, I'd like to take us to Arlington, Virginia. My very, very good friend, Dave Price. Dave, it's good to see you.
Yeah, I got to ask a question. You have your Weinstein University
I do.
cap on.
That's right.
Yeah, is there any significance to that, or just
no? I
different?
just not even that. I mean, it was actually I was playing around with face filters before we came on, or before I even contacted you. And I wanted to see if the face filter was affected by the cap, and it wasn't. But I just grabbed any cap, and it had been the Weinstein cap, which I haven't really worn for about a year. I guess it was just kind of somewhere deep in the closet where you throw something in and you forget about it, and then you realize a year or two later that it's still there. So that's the only reason. No, no other reason than that. So. Well, Dave, it's been a pretty harrowing week in terms of what's been on the media with Trump, and not just Trump, but his acolytes. Are you feeling any better after all these indictments that were laid down?
No. Yes and no, of course. That's the only answer. Look, if my math is correct, I believe that Donald Trump is facing 91 charges as we go on the air tonight, and 4 indictments for some pretty major things. Obviously, insurrection, voter tampering, I guess would be one way to say it. Election tampering, I guess, would be the better way. So it's good that we're proceeding with legal actions against the former president. What isn't so good, and you hear out there, are there 2 things that keep circulating about why, no matter what happens, he will not go to prison. And a lot of us feel that if he does not go to prison, with all the publicity, it really kind of does in the American idea that, all men are created equal and justice will be served and that kind of thing. But the 2 things that are really threatening any incarceration of Donald Trump, one is politics, and the other is Secret Service protection. So what I mean by politics, there are a number of people and in some prominent positions that feel that a president, well, let's start with the ex-president, since he's ex-president, should not be jailed because of the political ramifications. Now, does this mean that they worry about civil unrest if that were to happen? We already know that Donald Trump's acolytes are not averse to that type of thing. But I would hate to see that be the cause. First of all, an ex-president shouldn't be indicted. I mean, it's that simple. The Secret Service protection is, by law, he's entitled to it. And there's no provision in there for him not to get it. So would you put him, I think he would challenge and probably win a legal ruling if you put him in solitary confinement. I don't think that would fly. Maybe you would try that. I don't know. But so do you put Secret Service agents on either side of him? On the cells either side? And we'll talk a little bit later. He's going to continue to push the envelope. That's what Donald Trump does. It's what he always does. He acts as if the rules do not apply to him. And Brian, you said it on numerous occasions that so far he has not paid any penalty for it. And that's really pretty true. The pocketbook things that he's paid, that doesn't matter to him. Certainly politically, his numbers continue to go up as the other leading candidate, Ron DeSantis, governor of Florida, his numbers are going down. And of course, everybody else is around 1, 2, 3%, some kind of thing. So, Brian, what's your take on Mr. Trump as we sit here tonight?
Well, first of all, I do think he's scared because unless he becomes president again, or he can somehow get a juror in each one of these 4 cases to hold out, he's going to go to prison, which would seem unlikely, but it's just what should happen to any normal person. It came up today when I was watching a video about Trump. It's he's obviously going to be arraigned and processed. I should say processed and arrested. But on Wednesday is that, I believe? I think that's when he says he's coming in. And, he has to be booked. He has to have his fingerprints. And they said he's going to have a mugshot, but it looks, I just don't see him getting a mugshot. As David Feldman says, that would humiliate him with, in the media, with his acolytes have to see him humiliated. I don't know that would help. So I would tend to agree with David Feldman. I don't think he's going to have a mugshot even with this thing. So I don't know, Dave. In general, it just worries me because he's done so much bullshit ever since he's been indicted. I'm waiting for Judge Chutkin or however you pronounce him to do something. I wouldn't expect it from Aileen Cannon, but I certainly would expect it from others. And it just seems like, no matter what, Dave, bottom line is he still is where he is. It's kind of like Steve Bannon. He was even convicted, but he's still free. So what does it even matter? It's so depressing. And I know people say, hang on, but Dave, I'm telling you, I until something happens and somebody just says, no more of this bullshit, I'm sending you to prison. I told you not to do this and you did it. It just seems like nobody wants to pull the trigger on it.
Well, I would agree that you don't want to do anything too quickly. However, that's one thing that Trump wants to make sure doesn't happen. I don't know if you saw his attorneys have asked for trials in
2026. Right. Now, why doesn't he go for 3026? It's ridiculous.
Well, I assume, and I assume they'll continue to push for the later date, and hopefully the prosecution will continue to push for an earlier date, and we'll meet somewhere in the middle. The real question becomes, you said, okay, so Donald Trump doesn't get a mugshot. Let's assume he doesn't. Do you know anybody else ever arrested who didn't get a mugshot?
Not that I know of.
I got arrested.
I'm not right.
I got arrested. I had a mugshot. Yeah,
it's a good picture, by the way.
Yeah, it is. It's
you look good in it.
Kind of
you look good. That's your best picture.
Captures me.
One day we'll have to show it.
Radical days.
Right.
But the thing with Donald Trump that he's very, 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 and one more very good at is blaming others and playing the victim. And they're two different things, okay? So let's look at the blaming the others. Already, Judge Chutkin has come out, kind of issued a caution for him, making inflammatory statements that could intimidate witnesses. What happens if you intimidate witnesses? You're supposed to be punished, right? That's a no-no. No. Donald Trump is incapable of not doing that. He needs to respond. He's like a 4-year-old, whatever. Joey, that would be nice. Not going to happen. Now, Gary raises an interesting point. They gave Napoleon an island, if I remember correctly, right?
With the Hebrides or Seychelles?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Would you give Trump, part of Guam? I don't know. I don't know how you get around. Well, the big battle is going to come in the next few days, next few months, depending, is it's going to be a battle between First Amendment rights and what the court says. According to the First Amendment, as Americans, we have a right of free speech. But what people don't understand, and I don't think Donald Trump understands, is that's not absolute.
Right. It's
There's
not
some
absolute.
qualifications. And as Judge Chutkan has already pointed out, the rights of the court must be respected. So in that case, if you have the right of free speech and he does something that's judged as witness tampering, and then he says, oh, I was using my free speech or my political speech, the legal precedent is that the court rulings would supersede, if you will, the First Amendment. Interesting this week, I just saw a couple of articles where almost, well, I wouldn't say, again, breaking down politically whether they're a Democratic lawyer or a Republican lawyer. The Democratic lawyers are saying ordinary citizens would be in jail by now.
Right.
Not just for the statements. Not even for the crimes. And what in the Georgia, what is it, 18, right? Others indicted.
Right. Right.
So that's a pretty big one. So he's facing all kinds of things, right? And what does he do? Jack Smith, who's leading the investigation in D.C., he calls him deranged. Probably not going to win Jack Smith's favor with that, but I don't think Trump cares. He's had people, his supporters, high-ranking supporters, imitate that there's already corruption in this, and it's political and it's badgering, and it's the biggest Salem witch trial since the Salem witch trials, and da 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 da. Here's the thing, Brian, that most frightens me. I don't think Donald Trump didn't realize how prophetic he was when he talked about gunning somebody down on Fifth Avenue and not losing any support. His support is increasing. Each time an indictment has been handed up, his numbers have gone up.
And the idea, that he can get away with all this, that he can just do this, even they should know. Like, why wouldn't anybody think, like, hold it, Ivana Trump fell down the stairs and died, and she's buried at his golf course. Just that in itself, Jeffrey Epstein is dead. The question must just ring through our brains, like, is this guy for real?
No, Brian, you're looking at it wrongly. They do believe he's for real. They are so concerned with pick your poison, Joe Biden, the Democrats, the liberals, the wokes, all of the above, that they are willing to accept that at this point, Donald Trump was their leader and is their leader. Now, an interesting development, I think, this week. You'd have to give Fox News a lot of credit for Donald Trump's election. Would you agree?
Oh, absolutely. If not, if there's any one thing I would say that was responsible for him winning an election or getting the number of votes that he got, it would be Fox News.
Right. And Fox News and Trump have had a falling out.
But not as so much that they just break from him.
Well, wait for it. Rupert Murdoch, would you agree, is the most largest power in Fox News?
Absolutely. But maybe Trump is, even though he doesn't own it, because he can just simply turn people on Fox News if he wants. I don't know, Dave. I'm just saying.
Well, no, but I'm saying,
where's the real power? Is it Rupert Murdoch? We know that Fox is the instrument of power. But is Trump so strong that he can intimidate Rupert Murdoch?
No, absolutely not. There's already pretty reliable stories out there that Murdoch is casting or would like to see Virginia Governor Glenn Youngkin enter the race. Now, here's the interesting thing. Youngkin, brand new governor, right? No real track record as much. Has been complimented on his ability to thread the needle between holding Trump supporters and keeping independent Republicans, independents leaning toward Republicans, enough to win the election in Virginia. The question becomes, could Rupert Murdoch be a kingmaker? I mean, he's in charge of Fox. Can he say, I don't want Trump's name mentioned unless it's disparaging? And we're going to build up this Youngkin, because initially there were overtures that it looked like Ron DeSantis was their golden boy.
Let me ask you this, though, Dave.
Sure.
You're mentioning Youngkin, and let's suppose that Murdoch, chooses him to be the next king, as you say. Okay, we're just using metaphors here, but perhaps I would be rude to say that the majority of Trumpers are people who are ignorant, but I can't think of any other expression, because they are ignorant to the truth, whether it's climate change or whether it's the fact that Trump lost the election. Is there anybody who, and I'm not, again, didn't even say this facetiously, who can connect with the ignorant better than Trump, the WWF Trump? I don't see how the language and the demeanor of a Youngkin can connect with people like my cousin, who just, they think like the Illuminati exists.
The answer to the question, no. There's no one like Donald Trump. Now, what really will be analyzed for years, decades to come, is how did those people come to Trump? Donald Trump, when you really think about it, doesn't share much with a white unemployed miner in the Appalachian Mountains, right? But that's the type of people that are supporting him. I think part of it is, you heard early on, he speaks the truth. Okay, he doesn't speak the truth. What these people are saying, he speaks the truth that I believe. Yes, it is a cult. There's no question about that. If you were to list the 25 or 30 or 40 characteristics of a cult, we check all the boxes, right? We check all the boxes. Now, what worries me more, though, what troubles me more for America's future, is the people that I know personally, and there's a handful of them, who I would consider to be good Americans, good conservatives at one point, who are backing Donald Trump. And that's the thing, right? I've said it before, I think it bears repeating. The Republican Party really only has to reach out to one section: white males.
Right, because the white males seem to control the white females in that
in
cult.
Certain areas, in that cult, right?
The South.
South. And so I can't see anybody, Chris Christie, non-starter. Everybody's looking. No, let me show you that. And not everyone. It's hyperbole. People are looking at Christie as the anti-Trump of this group of what? How many are in there now? 7, 8? I forget how many Republican candidates.
It doesn't matter at this point.
Well, I mean, there's really only two viable, Trump and DeSantis, at this point. Now, Trump has a big decision to make. Will he enter that debate or not?
Not with Christie there.
He's indicated that he would, that he wouldn't, that he would, that he wouldn't. I remember, what was it, this Monday he was supposed to bring out proof positive of the election fraud in Georgia. He's always making these promises, like Mexico's going to build the wall. And people, they just don't see.
Well,
he doesn't follow.
Well, let me ask you this. First,
sure.
You'll remember, and we had discussed this years ago, when Trump had that first debate with all the other 17 candidates. And I told you, and I think you agree with me yourself. I mean, when we were watching, Ronnie and I were watching it late, we were laughing like crazy because he was just destroying everybody. Just his delivery, he was just emasculating anybody on that stage. And I think, to me, that night was like the comet. This when the comet hit, And I think it was just that the timing of it, it just pulled him in, and he had such great ratings, and then he just kept winning primary after primary. Now, I'm not saying, I'm correct, but there's no doubt that that night it ignited something. And none of them had any answer, way to come back at him. And he just kept destroying all of them. Aside from Chris Christie, who has a good experience as an attorney and an interlocutor, he's probably the only one who can get in a verbal knife fight with Trump and win. So that's what I'm saying. Why would Trump, knowing that he still has that image from that night, at least as I see it, of the comet hitting, he still has that image, and there's only one person who could take it away, and that's Christie. Because Christie will come right back at him.
And Trump will say something like, "Sir, I think the fat of your stomach has gone to your brain."
Right. He'll do something.
Don't you feel, Mr. Christie, that you be too weighty to be president?
Right. He would do his low thing, and that's fine with Christie, because Christie's had that before. But Christie would obviously be prepared for it this time. It'd be a lot different if Marco Rubio was trying to come back on Trump than Christie. Well, Christie could handle it.
What we are going to see,
and I don't like Christie, by the way. I'm not trying to defend
no.
Chris
Well,
Christie.
it's like
the last person I would defend.
Pick. Here's 7 ways that you can die. Pick the one you want the most. I mean, Chris Christie right now would be the best candidate who can't win, who you don't want.
And he's a northerner, so some southerners wouldn't like him anyway.
But
not that Trump.
If he was governor of the state where I lived and where you still live, I liken him a little bit to Mitt Romney, but of course he won't go as far as Romney did. Actually, Romney was a pretty good governor of Massachusetts. He's pretty much that was still when you could kind of be middle of the road. Certainly Republican, certainly conservative, coming from state that he came from. But he did some interesting things in terms of insurance care for Massachusetts. I just don't see Chris Christie being enough. And of course, Trump could just say, he won't say this, but others could say, well, wait a minute, Christie, you were in his pocket. What changed? And of course, Christie will say, well, January 6th and all the other things. But I think...
Well, let me say this, Dave, I'm sorry for interrupting, but again, I'm very much into culture, pop culture, media. The moment with Dan Quayle and Lloyd Benson, you're no Jack Kennedy. Can Christie throw the zinger in, the one zinger, that perfect sentence?
No. You're asking a group of people who've already made up their mind. The cult is not going to change. And they say, well, what about the other people? Think about this. If you're a conservative, you should love Donald Trump. Why do you think I say that?
If you're a conservative, you should love Donald Trump.
Correct. Why do I say that? Do you think?
Well, first of all, a conservative doesn't like a liberal. And Trump is going to give you, first of all, the Supreme Court.
Stop right there.
Okay.
That's it. You don't need to go any further. Donald Trump delivered something that had been promised and worked toward and worked for. We now have a conservative court. A conservative court, 6-3. A conservative court where 3 of those, well, actually 4 of the judges, conservative judges, are relatively young.
Right.
Are relatively young.
It might as well be 9 zip. It doesn't matter. It's going to be 6-3, 6-3, 6-3.
Or 5-4 at the best.
Or 5-4. You still lose. You still lose.
And that. So I think, if I were to, I don't have enough Republican friends left to ask them who aren't.
Nor do I. Believe me. Nor do I.
But my guess would be. But again, Donald Trump bamboozles. Donald Trump is not a conservative. He's not a liberal. He's a Trumpian. The world begins and ends with Donald Trump. You can't say it enough. But if you were to take, they always say the picture dictionary, one picture that captures it all.
Right.
Narcissist, Donald Trump, you're there. I remember, oh God, I don't know, flying from, I don't know, Atlanta. I guess we were living in, and we're flying somewhere during the election, and happened to be talking to the woman next to me, and we got talking, and she was a psychologist, and I said, I know, you're not supposed to, the Goldwater rule, where you're not supposed to judge somebody's mental capacity if they're not your subject or you're not treating them. And I said, but what do you think? She said, well, I can break that. She said, this is the ultimate narcissist. So, I mean, anybody who knew him, but also, I think we got to look at the cult also really feels that they are victims. Are you familiar with replacement theory at all, Brian? Does that term mean anything to you?
I mean, in terms of Charleston, where the Jews will not replace us, or that kind of thing?
No, well, replacement theory is actually circulating among a number of groups, all white, who believe that there's actually a conspiracy or a plan that's already in place to replace whites with blacks or people of color or Latinos. Oh, let's just call it non-whites.
Mm-hmm.
Well, look at those candidates. Let's see, if you believe that, you're not going to go for Tim Scott, right?
Right.
You're not going to go for Haley Barbour. You're not going to go for Chris Christie. Knock them down. You're not going to go for Pence. It's Trump. It's Trump. It's Trump. I just wish, and we don't live in such a place, but maybe someday we'll get around to it, where I think the Justice Department's ruling that a sitting president cannot be charged with a crime is wrong. Now, people have taken that to say that Trump can't be charged. See, people aren't real sophisticated. I mean, and I'm putting myself in that category too. Sometimes we're just so inundated with information that they say, oh, he can't be indicted or charged. Well, they've already proved that that's not true. The key question is now, and you kind of pointed it to earlier, are there somewhere 12 people who will sit in a trial and come back with a guilty verdict?
And you have to have all 12.
And that's it. So the odds, it's interesting. I mean, I think that's good in a way, but I will share an experience that I had when I was a young reporter. It was my first court case they sent me to. And after I listened to it, that's basically only like a 3-day trial, wasn't much. I was 100% convinced that the defendant was guilty, right? And the jury came back with a not guilty verdict. Okay, fine. That's just my opinion. The second trial I covered was a case I was certain that the defendant was guilty, and it came back with not guilty. The third trial that I covered, I was sure that the defendant was not guilty, and they came back guilty. So after those 3 trials, I said to myself, wow, I don't know. Again,
and by the way, Roy Cohn was I think indicted 3 times, and he never served anything. I mean, I just have no idea what's going to happen. And once this all plays out, I know the 91 charges, you would think that one of them would stick, but the very fact that you have 12 jurors and you only need maybe one thing was just majority, but if you have to just get one. If you just get one, and then you have a judge like Aileen Cannon, so you can forget about the case down in Mar-a-Lago.
Yeah, well, I mean, thank God we have others. Yes, I mean,
right.
Unless she's surprising, I think it's Trump has done a lot to point out the flaws of the system. Right? God, do we need to get rid of the Electoral College? Won't happen.
Not now. Not in our lifetime.
God, do we need more of the more Supreme Court justices, a larger court? Ain't going to happen. Why? Because it's just stacked against them. Okay, and of course, there's power in all 3 branches of government. If Trump comes in, if he is elected, I think we'll just see something obviously that we've never seen before. It's like, you think Donald Trump was bad the first time,
right now he's going to take care of business.
Yes, he is,
and he's got all his cronies they're going to follow through. And in fact, New Jersey, which is a Democratic state, I would expect to become Republican. Even it was just.
Well, I don't know about that. I think
Well, I'm just saying, it becomes a rush. I mean, I'm speculating, David. I'm just saying, once
no.
the hurly burly starts, they feel empowered, and then now they're going to just they put the screws to the blue states, during the time he's president.
So there is the executive branch, the presidency. My feeling on that is they really, more than anything else, set the tone of the country, right? They have power, but they don't have absolute power
yet.
Then you come down to the legislative branch. Now, right now, you have a split. The Senate is controlled by Democrats, but not really.
But not really, right?
You have two senators who are Democrats. One is already put out as an independent. You now have two independent senators, one Bernie Sanders and the other your favorite Arizona senator, who is?
Kyrsten Sinema.
There you go. Kyrsten Sinema has already, she's going to run as an independent in Arizona.
She has to.
Well, I mean, yeah, sure. She's actually withdrawn as a Democrat. She's now listing herself as an independent. You need every one of those votes, right? It's 50-50 Senate to get anything on, and then the vice president will cast the deciding ballot. So, but you have to get there first, right? So you have to get Senator Manchin from West Virginia on board. It's interesting, I mean, I don't know everything. I live in 3 metro stops from Washington, D.C. and spend some time there. And listen, I mean, I'm not in the inner circle. They don't invite me to anything like that. But apparently Manchin is pretty well liked on the Senate floor. A good old boy. He actually has a yacht. He actually docks here. I
already don't like him from that, but it's...
Well, yeah, what kind of coal miner has a yacht?
Right.
But there's a lot, he uses that base to that. And actually, I've heard him speak at length. And, if you don't know.
He's slick. He's glib. He's very glib.
He's good at that, I was going to say. Of course, again, I don't see how, given the story out of Hawaii, of course, they do dismiss it. I mean, this is not a channel for climate change, global warming, just the end of the world as we know it. But we know that a conservative court is not going to issue rulings. They're going to bring the climate down. A Republican president isn't. A Republican Senate certainly won't.
And they haven't. I mean, it's just plainly clear.
Republican House, which we have by 5 votes. Now, we've talked before a little bit about, and tonight I want to just mention it and taking it through. Where will the election take place? The presidential election will not take place in California. It will not take place in New York. It will not take place in New Jersey. It will not take place in Massachusetts. It will not take place in the Dakotas, Wyoming, Alabama. There's only a handful of states, Brian, that are going to decide the presidential election. And the Democrats have kind of listed those, and so we'll go through them in no particular order. Arizona.
Yes.
Where especially, the question will become, will Democrats vote for Sinema? Because you have a Democratic candidate, a Republican candidate, and Sinema in the race. So that's the question there. That's a battleground state. You've got neighboring Nevada, which actually is interesting. You have you have all the population in Las Vegas, right? Pretty much. I mean, Reno,
pretty much.
And that's it. And Reno's a cowboy town. It's a conservative town. So the question becomes, do you have enough Democratic votes in Las Vegas to sway the state? Of course, that gets to who the candidate is. Wisconsin, which was in play last time. We've mentioned that. Georgia. And you say, well, how can Georgia do it? Well, they got 2 Democratic senators, right? I mean, right now, they're blue in the Senate and red in the House. So how will they play out in the presidential race? You've got Michigan, Now, once Michigan was completely a Democratic state, when Democrats were the party of labor, because of course Detroit and the factories. And all that. Now you've got to count on, again, urban dwellers of Detroit to be able to carry the state. And Pennsylvania, which is, kind of scary because Pennsylvania, you think you have enough votes in Philadelphia and Pittsburgh.
And we did this time, though, because it wasn't that way the last couple of elections before that. We were losing Pennsylvania, but we did win in Pennsylvania.
Right. So
because the African American vote came out.
If people were going to, ask, well, if you were in New Jersey, okay, and you want to contribute to the presidential campaign, I wouldn't. I would contribute to the Senate campaign somewhere in another state. Simply because
money's better spent.
But money's better spent. Sometimes, it takes a little sophistication. You have to pick your candidate. Or you can just, it doesn't take any sophistication. Say, I'm going to give, $100 to the Democratic Party in Georgia or to the presidential campaign. And people think, well, my money doesn't really matter. Look at what Trump's doing with the $10 and $20. He's paying his whole damn legal fees with people sending him money. And the question becomes, you laugh about it, he says he's a billionaire. Now, there's strong indications that he is not.
Correct.
But he's got money. There's no question about that. He
has access to money. Let's say that much.
Yeah. And, but people want to send him money because he plays the victim and they believe they're the victim.
Correct.
I don't even want to call him an everyman. They realize that Trump is different. They do. They understand that.
Because they don't trust politicians. They don't trust politicians, and he's the first guy to say exactly what they have been thinking. And for sometimes, in part, they've been right in that sense that politicians have been, two-faced. Even Democratic politicians. They talk a big game, but things haven't really changed for the poor. It hasn't changed for the environment. That part's true. However, this is a very pragmatic channel here, and we know that there still is a big difference between the two.
Right. Now, as a state that you're familiar with because you went to college there at Bowling Green, I think you really could be in play this time, and you kind of said no, but I think there's a play.
I don't see how it can be.
Ohio. Well, you look at
unless it was strictly an abortion issue,
and there you are. Well, that's what's going to have to happen. Now let's we've been focusing on the Republican candidates tonight and agreeing, as any sane person would, that right now the nominations is Trump's to lose. And I think the only way he can lose the nomination is to be charged and jailed or banned. If insurrection charges come through, banned from holding office. Somebody earlier tonight put up the 14th Amendment as a possible way to go. But other than that, I think we've got that. Well, let's look at the Democratic side of the presidential. And you got Joe Biden. Now, Biden doesn't seem to be able to generate the enthusiasm that John F. Kennedy could.
He's like a lame duck. Not lame duck. He is lifeless, and I want Joe to do something. He does nothing but just, I believe in America, and we're going to come together and blah, blah, blah. What is this shit?
Well, what he's going to have to do, or the Democratic Party is going to have to do, is they're going to have to find some issues. Maybe different issues in different states. Abortion certainly is clear. If you believe that a woman has the right to control her body, you must vote Democrat. End of story. You can be a one-issue candidate. If you believe that America needs gun control, you need to vote Democratic. Because the Republicans are not going to give you that. Let's see what else. But Biden, the economy. It's funny, Brian. What do you? Americans judge the economy pretty much, on the everyday things. Grocery prices, right? Gasoline prices, wages that they're getting, and I don't know what gasoline prices are doing in Jersey, but here in Virginia, they're climbing up.
Like $3.70, something like that. Here, they're around $3.70.
Yeah.
But it's nothing where it's hit the $5 mark or anything like that. And by the way, that's part of the reason why the Republicans have been so effective, because people like Trump have connections with Saudi Arabia. They have connections with Russia, at the very least, in the sense that Putin wants Trump to win. So they've been able to knock off the supply. They control that price war, which then, of course, controls luckily the rest of the prices. But luckily, we're getting more and more electric vehicles, and that is making it tougher to have that all-out change in prices. Americans, even with inflation, Dave, either they're like do what the Japanese do, they just pull back in their buying habits, and that does help control inflation when people buy less. But that whole thing, oil as a weapon, has always hurt the Democratic Party. And if it wasn't for the reserve that Biden let loose, and the Republicans tried to stop him from doing that, then we would have had, because again, the oil is the key. But the Republicans are willing to annihilate the economy because they feel they can do that and blame. And this is where the ignorance that I talk about comes in, because all Trump has to say, look at the oil price, what Crazy Joe's doing. He doesn't know how to control the economy. When in reality, you and I know what the truth is. We certainly do. But it's that perception that matters. Truth doesn't matter anymore, Dave. It's perception of truth.
Now, yes. I don't think there's any question about that. What I would say from the reading that I do is America has never been unified, okay? There's always been conspiracy theories out there, or some kind of secret society, whether it's Salem witch trials.
Right, but the right that we're talking about, even in those days, they didn't think they could have carte blanche and be able to get away with it and take over the country, though they would like to have done that. Right. This time is different. They want to take it all.
Well, and you're right. You've got going on. You've got the one time the Civil War. Now, I was talking to my son, who's a professor of economics, and he believes, he's living now in Tuscaloosa, Alabama. He believes there's going to be a civil war, but not with guns. It'll be
a cold civil war.
A cold civil war, right? Who goes to where to get what? And what laws are made coming back. I mean, there are southern states who are in the process or have already done. It's not only illegal to have an abortion in their state, it's illegal if you live in their state to get an abortion somewhere else and come back. Does that mean, how much will the abortion issue drive, and how does Joe Biden connect with that?
This is a good question there, though, too. We should look at.
Jeff, what is the common denominator of free pubs? Hatred of Democrats and all they stand for. That's just it. Repubs stand for we don't. They've always kind of been, at least in my lifetime,
right.
They've always kind of been the party of nay, right? Nay. You look at the changes. They're basically in democratic regimes. JFK, Lyndon Johnson, Barack Obama. You see some changes. I mean, Barack Obama, that wasn't so much an administrative change. That just, there's one that completely backfired, at least to me. I honestly believed that when America elected Barack Obama, we had maybe turned a little bit of a corner.
Mm-hmm.
And then when he was reelected, I thought, that's really good. And yet, the hatred that was out there for Barack Obama, for Black America, for this replacement theory that somehow blacks or Latinos or Hispanics or whatever minority you want is somehow, what should I say? I'm trying to look for the word here. Somehow, I don't know. It just that I just keep coming back. I'm almost speechless. Donald Trump has a chance. Listen to these words. Donald Trump has a chance to be president of America again.
Through illegal means. Through illegal means.
Right.
Even with legal means, he get close. but I think it has to be through illegal means. I mean, let's just put that question out there too, Dave. Can the Republican Party, given the current situation, climate change, what Trump's done with the indictments, presentation of facts, in a fair election, can Trump win?
Yes.
And I mean, you're just saying that you're saying like Georgia, enough of them would come out.
Okay, okay. So say those states we talked about: Arizona, Nevada, Wisconsin, Georgia, Michigan, and Pennsylvania. Is there any state there you can't conceive of Trump winning?
If all the idle voters or voters who don't vote come out in some way,
can Donald Trump carry those states, Brian? My answer is yes, he can.
I don't think he can legally. I think there are enough of us and enough young people, although some people say that like the 18-year-olds are becoming more conservative. I don't know how that pans out.
I don't think, I don't see that. They're certainly more accepting of gay.
Well, either way, I don't want to take a chance. I don't want this fucker to win, of course, no matter what, legally. My problem is I think he will do everything. I mean, just the fact of voter suppression in Georgia, that was horrible. Otherwise, Kemp never would have been governor, but he got in because of that. Voter suppression is what's going on here. If you're able to hold back 500,000 votes, we know where those votes would have gone or will go. That's what I see the problem is voter suppression. Just, you can't have the mailboxes, or if you do have mailboxes, you have 4 of them throughout the state of Texas. That kind of thing stifles democracy, and they're going all out. And if we can't win in the courts half the time, you got to get the 12 jurors. Dave, how are we going to win this thing? I mean, I don't want to sound pessimistic, but you've joined me in this pessimism. And in fact, I don't
even know if it's pessimism. I think it's realism. I think Donald Trump tonight, is a extremely viable candidate for the presidency of the United States. I think he is the most viable president on the Republican side. I think, given what we know now, unless he is convicted in such a way that he cannot run, cannot serve, he will be the Republican nominee. And, I don't know. You're going to have two, I hate to say this. Look, I'm old. I'm 71. I'm aged. But you're going to have two kind of old people running, and that's hard to inspire young people. And the Democrats need young voters. They need young voters.
Well, are young voters young farts essentially now? Is that what you're saying?
No, what I'm saying is, no.
I mean, why is there some lack of sense when it comes to civics, like how things work?
Well,
was it our fault as educators?
I think that's part of it. Now, I'll go with New Jersey. That's the only state I worked in other states, just in and out as a consultant. But New Jersey, when I went to school, and it's going to sound, oh my God, when you went to, no, just hear me out on this. There was a class called civics that you took. Gary Peacock, who, as a listener of the show,
I believe he's in our audience right now.
Yeah, I think he is. He's coming. Gary and I've had this discussion before about the fact that we had a very conservative civics teacher. I mean, we didn't know at the time, right? It was 9th grade. What the hell, But we actually got a good grounding and founding in civics, much of which, they didn't tell you. But I mean, you come out with that now, and this is interesting. What sometimes education makes a problem. They've replaced civics in the curriculum with world history. Nothing wrong with world history. Nothing wrong at all. However, I think you should understand your country first before you go about looking at other countries. Put that meaning the only change that could possibly happen is the vote. And Brian, you are a leading spokesperson for they will cheat. I mean, you certainly got support of that. The question is, will that cheating be enough?
Dave, can I share just an anecdote with you?
Sure.
You remember in 1972, McGovern ran against Nixon, and there was a mock election. There was a show on the weekends called In the News, like after the cartoons, which I was actually on, but my dad made me go to to Saturday school or whatever the hell it was at the time. But anyway, long story short, we had our McGovern and they had their Nixon. And I remember a couple of my friends, at the time I didn't know that they were Republicans, because again, they were wearing bell-bottom jeans like I was and this and that. And there was this big truck that would come up, and then McGovern was going to make his speech. Actually, Sergeant Shriver actually came to the school, the middle school. And one of my friends took the cord from the megaphone, and I thought he was just joking in the sense, like, just take it out to joke. And then I realized after it happened that, and it took me time to process it, that something was going on politically at his house where he was raised as a Republican in the sense that, the other guys were bad. Like, you probably heard at home, McGovern was bad. And he pulled it out. And I always felt bad for that because I didn't do anything about it at the time. I should have put it right back in because they thought something was wrong with the megaphone. No, there was nothing wrong with the megaphone. It was somebody whose father was a conservative Republican, and he was doing dad's goodwill, so to speak. And I know that's just anecdotal. It's just one situation. But that's what I've seen from people like that. How, it's kind of passed down to the kids. And that behavior of pulling out the cord, it's funny to them. There's no sense of fairness in the game. It's a weighted game. I'm not saying we couldn't do it. We've talked about, what happened with Kennedy in Chicago. But that kind of behavior is what I see now with the problem. This is why I don't trust them. It's not just that particular event. We've looked at Watergate. When we look at any of the cabinet for the Republicans or anybody working for Republican presidents, we see that generally there's a lot more problems with Republicans than Democrats. We saw what George Bush had done with Iraq, his poor performance in Katrina. Dave, it just goes on and on and on. And their treatment of blacks, which is a big problem because they're the ones, they're not the party of Lincoln. You know what I mean? They say they are, but they always have been.
They are the party of Lincoln, but the Republican Party of Lincoln is not the Republican Party of today.
Right. They'd like to go back. And if they were back then, they would certainly be with Jefferson Davis. But I've seen it as a racist party because most of the Republicans I knew were racist. I see it as a cheating party because most of the Republicans I know were cheaters. In fact, they're always complaining about taxes. But if there's a pothole that they run over, they're pissed off. Why isn't this pothole being filled? Well, maybe because you're pushing to have your local tax. The bottom line is, yes, I believe they're cheaters. Not every Republican, of course, and there are Democrats who do cheat. I'm not naive. But cheating has gotten out of hand now, okay? And you've got your main cheater, and they're saying, we've got the guy. We're going to get in, and the ends justify the means because they do it themselves. And that's it. So now this is what we have to fight. And then what bothers me the most about Biden, he seems like this old guy who just thinks in the past, like, oh, you know what? I believe in the American people, and they'll come to their senses. No, Joe, it doesn't work that way, okay? There will be no arc of justice unless you get out there and do something. Do something.
Well, I'm going to put on my Joe Biden hat here and say I'm advising Joe. One of the things I expect Joe Biden would say is, well, I won. I beat Trump. Why should I change anything? I beat him. So if Joe Biden were to say that to you, what would you say to him now?
I would make an analogy with sports. I said, if you see that a team, they figured out, like a boxing, okay? Like Muhammad Ali, when he fought George Foreman, he's going against a boxer. He's not going to fight that guy in the other way because he can't match him with the punch. He had to do his own thing. So after that, if anybody was a skilled fighter when they fought Foreman, like, say, Holyfield and the other guys, of course, Foreman was older, but you don't go toe-to-toe with him, okay? And they're going to learn from that mistake. And it's the same thing. If you think that just because Biden won, because they were starting to try the things. Trump kept saying, "We're watching you in Philly. We're watching you," and they were really, really upset. And Bill Barr was talking about the chance that there would be some kind of corruption when it deals with mail-in ballots. Now they know that they've got to win everywhere in all these situations, and this is what you're seeing. You're seeing all these state legislatures that are being filled with Republicans, and so even if Biden does win, then they will challenge it in the states. And now you've got somebody like Gorsuch. You can't tell me he's going to play a fair game. No more than Bruce Schroeder did with Kyle Rittenhouse. You can't tell me that Brett Kavanaugh, the man's a rapist, okay? Giuliani's a rapist. Trump is a rapist. They're getting away with it.
Yes.
And that's why I don't trust them. And for Joe Biden to think that he can simply say, okay, this is the way I did it. I've proven it. Joe Biden's ass was saved by Jim Clyburn, okay, or Clyburn.
In South Carolina.
Without that, Bernie wins. So if Joe thinks that somehow he can just be the same, that's not the way this country works. It's not the way sports work in general. This is why you see people who think that they're going to be 49-0 and they're just going to be 50-0. Doesn't mean that, okay? It just you can't expect it to be the same. This is a dynamic dialectical situation. Each situation, like you say, history doesn't repeat itself, but it does rhyme.
Right.
So what you're saying is it kind of feels the same, but it doesn't repeat itself. It does, and all we have to do is look at what's happening in California right now with the hurricane. That shit doesn't happen, okay? It's a new world. It's a brave new world. And Joe Biden's, and look, he's 82 or what? Or he's going to be 82. And Dave, I don't. He seems like a wet rag up there, and yet he's got to be the one. I mean, I'm going to vote for him, but even Chomsky, as liberal as he voted for Joe Biden. But I don't think you can simply do that. I think you have to show some fight, and I'm not seeing it. It wouldn't hurt. Look, you said it yourself. I mean, all the Republicans who are going to vote for Trump, they're already decided. You and I are decided. The question is, can you get people to come out and vote, and can you make it a fair election? And that means you have to get your African-American voters, you have to get your liberal whites or college-educated whites to come out and vote, and in droves. It's got to happen, Dave, or Biden will lose because of the cheat. If it's a fair one, I still think we can win. But maybe I'm wrong. What do I know?
Well, on that, I would agree. I don't know much either, but I think tonight I'm going to close with this in my portion. I wish I didn't feel this way, but I feel tonight, and maybe by next Saturday we'll see something different, right? And I see Anti-Guy up there putting up another thing. That's back. That's just been recently. I mean, it was kind of talked about he would run away, but now
only if he was in a prison cell would he go to Russia, because he knows if he goes to Russia, he's under the control of Putin. So complete control.
But I think it would be. Was his fear of prison be greater? And
he doesn't want to go to prison. That's for sure. Look, that's one thing. He's used to having people, serve him grapes. He would not want to go to prison.
So, like I said, to finish off, I wish I didn't have to say this, but tonight, I believe the following. This has been the Donald Trump hour, almost, and that's the reason he justifies by his horrible behavior the media coverage that he gets, right? Now, like I said, I didn't expect the backlash to Barack Obama that we got. I didn't really expect that people would stay with Trump a number of times, but especially now. But what he's been able to convince people is it's a witch hunt. It's me. I'm a victim. And you've heard him say this time and time again. It's not me they're after, it's you. That's what he says. It's not me they're after, it's you. And then, throws in words, like unfair. Well, that gets a lot of white support. It's unfair that they think a lot of things are unfair. So now he's the spokesperson for unfairness. So, having said that, I think it'll be Donald Trump. I think it'll be Joe Biden. And I would say, you always say the best man win. I think we know who the best man is, but I'm not so sure that he could win. So I want to thank everyone for joining us this evening. As always, we appreciate it. I do want to say one other thing. If any of you who are listening or ask people to join the Facebook page, don't just send a message to them. Remind them that they have to fill out. There's a little
right.
response.
You have to agree. I mean, we have literally, Dave. We have hundreds of people who have been, apply, but they don't actually say I agree, and we decline it because we're not going to put up with that because we've had Trumpers get into our group, and that's a problem. You have to agree.
So, Brian, I'll sign off now. Goodbye, everyone, and we'll let Brian close out the show.
Okay, Dave, thank you for coming on. I appreciate it. Be well. All right, folks. Just want to show you a couple quick videos. Again, I want to thank Dave for coming on tonight. Some positive videos in a certain sense, and then some not so positive videos. I would like to share with you and get some commentary from you. Let's go to the web here. All right. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to resize this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to refresh this page, and you'll have to tell me, by the way, if you don't hear the volume to this. Okay, that's kind of important. Okay, I think I have a lock here. All right, well, that's good enough. Okay, let's turn off the background music, and we're going to listen to Jon Stewart. Again, if there's a problem with the volume, you'll tell me. I believe I have this set up correctly. Yes, I believe I do. All right, so we're going to take a gander at Jon Stewart. And here we go.
The Jedi mind trick in the reality distortion field of Fox's arsenal came next.
Sorry.
It's okay.
For all the freedom-loving patriots in this country.
They're really coming after all of us, but he's going to stand firm and strong. If there's ever somebody to fight this fight, it's Donald Trump.
Donald Trump, selfless hero, a man who cannot go anywhere unless his name is in giant letters on that conveyance, is an egoless freedom fighter for the little man, battling desperately until there is no one in his inner circle left to go to jail for him. Yet that guy is actually on the ramparts shielding the regular Joes. This motherfucker is so selfish, he didn't even give his sons a jawline. Trump is not fighting for you. You are his human shields, and you always have been. And it's a shame, because I'm not sure I would agree with any of you politically, but you deserve better. The Jedi mind trick in the reality distortion field of Fox's arsenal came next.
He's become a symbol for the disaffected man and woman and the forgotten person in America.
They see Donald Trump as a symbol for all the freedom-loving patriots in this country.
They're really coming after all of us, but he's going to stand firm and strong. If there's ever somebody to fight this fight, it's Donald Trump.
Donald Trump!
Okay, so you just saw obviously Jon Stewart here, and I think he put it well in that these people, these Republicans, have become human shields. Okay, he's not protecting anybody, as he said. He's not protecting anybody. Now, again, the problem is what I was mentioning with Dave is their perception is there. So in other words, they don't realize it, but they are human shields for a very evil person. And as David said, if there's one common interest or disinterest, if you want to put it that way, for the Republican is that they don't like Democrats. Okay. So again, I wanted to just take a peek at that because I thought it was a good metaphor for the Republicans. They're human shields, right? Now, we were also talking about the Republicans not believing in climate change. This one I wanted to show you also. This is this asshole Ben Shapiro. Okay, very popular within the right wing. Most of you probably know who he is anyway. But The Amazing Atheist made a reel, and I'd like you to check out what Ben Shapiro says. Okay. He thinks it's fucking funny. It's not.
It is hot this summer in Florida. Also, it's hot like every summer in Florida. You've been to Florida? It's really, really hot and humid.
Has it been record-breakingly hot before? Has it been this hot before? Isn't that the point? It has never been this hot before. That's the whole point of record-breaking heat, is it's now hotter than it's ever been, which that might be worth taking notice of. I don't know. Seems like the kind of thing you might want to go, huh, why is that? Unless you just have zero intellectual curiosity.
It is hot this summer in Florida. Also, it's hot like every...
You know, that's interesting, folks, because Republicans have this way of just saying something. Well, just turn on your air conditioner. Now, some of you are old enough to remember this. Some of you not, so I apologize if I'm bringing up something that's before your time. But you might remember during the time that Reagan was president, there was a lot of discussion about the hole in the ozone layer and the problem with ultraviolet light, increases in skin cancer. And he laughed it off and he said, well, just use sunblock. Right? And people thought that was funny. But what wasn't funny is, you know, years later, what did Maureen Reagan die of? Melanoma, skin cancer. And it wasn't funny then. And this is why this crap, the way that they respond to this, just turn on the air conditioner, doesn't work that way. I just had to show this asshole because he's such a big asshole. All right, I've got another asshole I want to show you because he is rearing his kraken head. And that would be, let's see if I can make this a little bigger here. Allan Dershowitz, okay? AKA the guy who gets his massages at Jeffrey Epstein's island. One of the first ones to get it there. Okay. Now he's been interviewed quite a bit of late. He's interviewed on Newsmax. Real prick. Okay. And he's out there to defend the indefensible. And that's my point about Dershowitz. I think that his change over the last 40 years, I think it started with OJ, is the idea that, you know, it's like a game to him being an attorney. He wants to win the case that's unwinnable. To say, I'm the smartest. I don't care if the guy's guilty or not. I'm going to win that case. The unwinnable case. He's like the evil Perry Mason, so to speak. So he's out there on the airwaves, mainly on Fox, Newsmax, and OAN. But here's something from Forbes. And I wanted you to listen to him because you got to understand where you can see where the Trump legal team is going to go. It's pretty pathetic. It's, you know, I think there's only one attorney I hate more than Dershowitz, which seems almost impossible, and that would be Rudi Giuliani, and I'll get to him in a second too. So let's watch this schmuck here.
How serious it is?
Sure. Well, I predicted there'd be an indictment in Fulton County. I didn't predict it would be a RICO charge because it's so unusual to bring a RICO charge, a racketeer charge.
Yeah.
See, already he's doing it. Who the hell could predict that he was going to be indicted? I mean, as if he's the one with the prediction.
Against election reform. What this basically says is that Trump and all of the others who have been indicted knew full well that the election was legitimately won by Joe Biden, and they corruptly.
And he did win the election. The only thing that was corrupt was Team Trump.
Intended to change the result of an election that they knew was fair. In order to prove this indictment, the prosecution is going to have to prove beyond a reasonable doubt what Trump had in his mind.
And I agree. This is the problem here is that they're going to have to prove that Trump actually knew this was going on. And as Bill Barr said, well, even if he knew it, you're not supposed to rob the bank if you met with the bank. I'm sure Dershowitz is going to say something about that. Okay. But I'm sick of this motive thing, because he didn't say it in words, like, I want to steal the election, like it's okay. And that's why I'm worried about the one juror. They'll just keep putting it out there. If he didn't say it, if the glove didn't fit, you can't convict. So they say if he didn't say, I want to steal this election, he's innocent. You see, human language, that's the problem I have. In fact, let me go back, if you don't mind, to my original thing here. Is it language is tearing this country apart in that the legal system, you just twist the way a word is, you do the Roy Cohn thing and, you never admit to it. Or if you do, you say a shade or a subtle meaning, as Rudi Giuliani said, we're going to go by trial by combat. That's why I didn't really mean we were going to fight. That's just a metaphor. And today, language is used such as a vile weapon, because then you can go to a jury and say, well, he didn't say the words, so if you don't know, there's got to be reasonable doubt here that he did this that he didn't do it because he didn't say it. Well, people lie. You can't get into the brain there. But the man's obviously a liar. But that's not the way the courts work. And that's a weakness in the court system. Can you prove motivation? And as long as an attorney for Trump, like Lauro, can say, well, he never said it. That was somebody else said this and blah, blah, blah. Trump, ahead of time protected himself with the language. I just need 11,780 votes. He didn't say, I want to steal them, but he wanted to say, this is what I need. I mean, to you, that's pretty clear what he was trying to do. But because of this idea of semantics and language, it's like everything's semantic fiat. We're just going to change the meaning of the words. Get it so jumbled up that nobody's fucking guilty. Just like, Kyle Rittenhouse. He can say that he felt threatened. And because of that, he can defend himself and just fire it up. But if you're black and you're on that wharf somewhere down in Alabama and you fight back, you'll be arrested. That's the way it works in this country. And I don't like the language because they play games with it. It's the language that's the problem. I don't know how you get around it. Let's watch more of this asshole, Dershowitz. And like I say, I've got somebody worse than Dershowitz. It's hard to believe.
There are two possible instructions that a judge could give. One, if Trump honestly believed that this election had been stolen, that everything he did was perfectly proper. Mm-hmm. The other construction might be, even if Trump actually believed that the election was unfair, that belief had to be reasonable. And if he gives that instruction, then Trump is going to be able to introduce mountains of evidence showing that so many other people believed it was stolen. I'm not one of them myself, but...
Oh, now he's going to protect his intelligence by saying, I'm not one of them himself. He himself doesn't believe that the election was stolen. But he's saying because 75 other people think that somehow you can jumble that up. And he's probably right in that sense. Because he's actually saying, he's giving this advice to Trump and to his lawyers. Because he's a Harvard professor. He says, just put it in their minds. Like, hey, 75 million other people believe it, so who wouldn't think it's true?
Pressured anyone, unless you consider that conversation between Trump and Ratzenberger pressure? He'd have to be a real wussy if that were pressure.
No, that was pressure. The whole phone call was pressure. Just the same kind of pressure he put on Zelensky. But can you do me one favor first? First, I need a favor. There was a hell of a lot of pressure. He was on that phone for at least an hour. Okay? The reason it didn't go as far as what he's thinking is because he didn't want to outright say steal the votes. Trump's not that stupid. Because he knew that the guy on the other end had some inkling of ethics. And not much, but just enough. So he's clouding this up. Again, it really has to do with language. If you listen to this, that's not pressure. Yes, it is pressure. You didn't have to deal with it. You put the pressure on 2 African Americans. Tried to frighten them and did frighten them. You had no business doing that, asshole.
And he looks to me like a pretty shrewd, pretty conniving guy. In fact, I know he's a conniving guy. I'm going to show you. He's a conniving guy in a few minutes.
It would take one to know one, of course.
So, I mean, you read through it and it can't be a crime. I'll tell you why it
yes, it can be a crime. There are a lot of crimes it can be. And you're part of it, asshole.
Can't be a crime. Because if it was a crime, and Franny Willis, who doesn't seem to be able to get an indictment done right.
Her name is Fannie Willis, okay? Get it right.
Fanny, or did I say Franny? Well, Fanny, who can't get an indictment.
Yeah, you're indicted by her, and you can't even get her name right. Okay, you did that on purpose, you asshole.
I mean, she's got to kind of have to work on indictment 101, which she failed miserably the other night. So,
says you.
I want you to just listen to this. This is Stacey Abrams, which she's been saying regularly for 4 years. Now, under the Fanny doctrine, which is to indict people who are election deniers, this woman probably in the state of Georgia denied the election more often than anyone, including Trump. Is there a reason she's not indicted? I want you to guess what the reason is. But listen to it though. First, let's listen to her.
Just say it for Christ's sake.
Now, don't get upset. There are times, I don't know if it comes out here, but there are times that she thinks she's the governor. She goes into a thing where...
Well, she really should have been the governor. There were a lot of votes that were suppressed. And she would have easily become governor if there had not been suppressed votes, whether it was in the prisons or the African-American vote, making it difficult for people to vote. She would have been governor. She didn't, I don't think, she didn't actually say that it was illegal, but she did not accept what had happened, I understand, but she did it the right way. I don't know what he's going to say.
She thinks she's the governor.
rigged, using the word steal.
Yeah, she was robbed of an election, okay? But she didn't take it to court. She didn't steal any votes. She played the game fairly, unlike you, just making shit up.
Do you think it's dangerous going into 2020? I don't, because we can actually back it up. And so in response to what I believe was a stolen election, and I'm not saying they stole it from me, they stole it from the voters of Georgia. That's what outside out.
Right, it was because it was voter suppression, and that did happen. There's no doubt about that the vote was suppressed in Georgia for that gubernatorial election. The vote was suppressed, okay? Now, of course, the ruling class, we know who they are in Georgia at the time, they did it in their legal way. But it was still suppression. It was unethical, but they legally did it with the help of a governor, just like Jeb Bush helped his brother out. Okay? Not everything that is legal is ethical. Voter suppression is unethical. And they did that. Stacey Abrams lost thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of votes because of voter suppression, which continues to this day in Georgia. She has a real beef. You don't, Rudi. You had a fair deal. She didn't. And she accepted it. But you don't want to pay for it.
If I'm ever going to concede, the answer is no. This is not a speech of concession. Because concession needs to acknowledge an action.
Right. So she didn't have a concession speech, which I completely understand. But she didn't go and challenge it in the courts with the suppression. She knew what was going on. She knew that they could legally suppress the votes, which they did. They didn't have to steal the votes. Let me go back to the main screen here. The Republicans did not have to steal the votes in Georgia in order to have Brian Kemp win. They didn't have to. All they did was they suppressed votes because they knew they would win if they could suppress the vote. And this is exactly what's going to happen in 2024. They're going to first try to do it legally, whether it's in Texas, to ensure that they win. In Pennsylvania, they're going to try to do it. Especially in Georgia, they're going to try to do it. In Ohio, they're going to try to do it. And I'm not making this up. This is no conspiracy. This actually happened. When somebody says, we don't want 18-year-olds to vote, or we don't want people to vote by mail, that in itself is voter suppression. They make up all kinds of excuses for what's going to happen. Somebody's going to cheat with the mail, blah, 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 blah. So, yeah. So it comes back to what Dave and I were discussing. Can Trump win with a legal election? And I say no. But part of that legality has to do with suppression, which is a legal way of doing something that you would otherwise do illegally. Suppression of vote. All they care about is just cutting down the votes. Reduce the number of days you can have to register to vote. Those kind of things. So this is when I mentioned that I felt in a fair election, we'd win. And even with the suppression, we might win. But these state legislatures are making it so difficult. These governors, those GOP governors are making it so difficult to get the vote out, even though we can have the vote. Even people who have been accused of misdemeanors, minor crimes, they don't let them vote because they were in jail or prison. Those kind of things. This is how they're going to do it. And I say the number one way they're going to do it is to use voter suppression and frustrate you. They don't care how they get there. Just like Trump said, I don't care how you do it. Just get me 11,780 votes. That's what they're going to do. And if you think it was a hurly-burly then, just wait and see in 2024 when these state tallies start coming in, just like Dave and I were talking about, in Ohio and Pennsylvania and Georgia and Wisconsin and Michigan. And then when there's nothing left, even if we do win, they've got a plan for that. Just like Trump. Trump wanted to, silence Pence. He wanted to have, martial law imposed. Stay president. He had everything set up along the way to try to win, right? Even after January 6th. And that's how an evil mind works. They've got everything from A to Z what they're going to do. They're going to stick sand in the gears with all of these indictments. And you and I know this. And why do you think that you and I, the plural you, that you and I are so damn upset and depressed every day? I saw, Veg, you're here, isn't it right? So your video today, the depressing thing about what's going on with the fires, and Yellowknife, and the hurricane. We're doing climate change there. But there's this general malaise that we all suffer right now. And my wife and I talk about this all the time. What if Trump had never won? If Hillary had won, this whole shit for these last 6 years or 7 years would not have been on our brains. And it takes a toll on us. You can't get high 365 days a year, 24/7. You can't do that. You have to go out. You have to do your job. You have to take care of business. And that shit's on your mind. It's going to drive, it probably has driven a lot of people to drink. So we're tired. We're really tired. You're tired. I know that. I'm tired. But we got to keep going. Because as bad as that is, the tension between our ears every day, the tension that we have, created by Trump and his acolytes, your neighbor down the street, where you can't talk openly like we are doing right now. You might not make it. You can't. You're careful when you're around that guy with a pickup truck, right? But this is what they've caused. And if he wins, it's going to be worse than the malaise. Because then, as Dave and I were alluding to, Trump goes all out. And remember, he's got the Supreme Court. If he wins the Senate, and don't forget, they'll do the same thing, the Senate races. He'll win Congress. And then you may not even be able to vote again. I know it seems insane. But it's like that fire up in Yellowknife. It starts as a spark. And you have that potential energy out there, the wheat fields or whatever it is, the forest. That spark, you want to talking about butterfly effects in a bad way. There's all that untapped energy that's lit. And Trump lit that untapped energy with 75 million people. But if we give the batons to them, they're going to make your life, and my life, just about as miserable as one could get. You want to talk about, I'm thinking about The Covenant or whatever. What was that show? You'll have somebody in the chat. It'll be like that. The Handmaid's Tale. That's what it'll be. We'll get there. It'll be like Germany, June 1933, the last day or whatever. And I hate this, folks. I hate this. I can't even speak with my cousin. Let me give you an example. He sent me this stupid message. I told him to go to Fox with this. Good. I said, you got some beautiful information there. You want to prove it? Go. He says, breaking. Footage of counted duplicate ballots in Fulton County, Georgia from 2020 election has just been released. Ballot showed 100% to Biden and 0 to Trump. Statistically impossible, according to the county's own data. Okay. Sounds like Mike Swindell. And believe me, my cousin is a real ignoramus. He's a real ignoramus. And the only reason I have contact with him is because he is my cousin. But he's a bigot. And I tell him so. And I scream at him. He's a stupid man who believes everything that Fox says. And he thinks I'm crazy. He has a good friend who has a swastika on his arm. And my cousin's Jewish. People are monsters. And, when we're like 2 or 3, when we don't really see the world, and we just watch cartoons and we have a bowl of cereal, there's a certain comfort because our parents shield us. Talk about shielding. They shield us from the horror because they know at least give the kid 4 or 5 years to enjoy his or her life before they see what's going to happen when you go to school. Remember my father told me when I was around 5 or 6, he says, listen, as a Jew, I want you to understand what's going to happen to you. People are going to say things to you. You're going to hear things you're not going to like. And it hit me like, what are you talking about? And he tried to say it in a nice way, right? He said, this family, we're good people. We're not bigots. He talked about bigotry early in my life. We're not bigots and we never will be. But there are people out there who are going to say things, and they're mean. My father experienced that during World War II on a ship, fighting for his country. My father talked to me early about what racism was. And if there's anything I got from my parents, because I was so lucky in that sense, they were good people. They really, really, really believed in doing the right thing. It was just something that was in them. And 2 people who got together because of that. They cared about things like that. But he warned me. And right around the age of 5 is when he did, just because he knew I was going to go to school and eventually I was going to hear it, which I did. A lot. And obviously, if you're African American, I don't have to tell you, you're going to hear that. You heard it. You know what I mean? The monsters out there. Inculcated from. That's why I say the past is not simply the past. It's like a leech, and it gets from one generation to the next. It is that spark that ignites that untapped energy. And it bothers the hell because I see it. I see it down the street. I just go down to the bay and I see some of the shit that I see. I can't believe it. He warned me. But like most good parents, he tried to give me 5 good years of watching Disney and not having the stress of what some kids get early in their lives. They get beaten and whatnot. But I didn't know the world was bad until around the age of 5. And I realized it was worse for other people. That I was going to have not only sympathy, I was going to have empathy for other people. Because it's not fair. That's why I became essentially an atheist, if you think about it. I mean, I could even accept the idea of a God. But if he does nothing, there's plenty of bad people out there to smite. You know. I want it fair. I know I'm not getting it. You're not getting it. But it's just hard to take that, you know, you live a life and you see all these people around you. You can call it ignorance. You can say that their parents affected, whatever it is. It's a horror show. Especially when you know how decent some people are in this world. There's some very good people. I saw just in Hawaii how somebody died with their dog, holding the dog, because they could have escaped. Jumped in the ocean, but they wanted to be with the dog because they knew that the dog couldn't get out. I get that. Somebody's giving their life up for a smaller being. And he did it. And that's how he died. There are good people out there. Really good people. And I would like to say that probably more than half of this country is good. It's when I go to work every day, you know. I believe I'm doing something good. I care. Because I know that those kids are going to be out there. If they can't get it from somebody, they got to get it from me. Whatever it is. They got to somehow believe this bald 63-year-old guy's got to be able to give them something. And if I can't get through the curriculum, at least I'll be able to teach them what it is to be a human. That I've made mistakes, but I don't want to be a bad human being. But the older me, looking back at the 5 years, I hope you all had a good childhood, and that can't be assured. But I thank my parents for 5 years. They gave me a world that wasn't really the real world. And it is, I guess, important to give the children that. There'll be a time that they'll have to deal with it. And it was the same way my father sat me down. And I remember that day I was sitting down in the kitchen and I was 5 or 6 years old, and he said, "Look, you're going to go to school. I want to explain something to you in a simple way." Because he was experienced. He knew the secrets because he felt them. And he knew it was coming my way. He knew it. What I'm telling you is just like my father. And again, I'm not a teacher here in this sense. I'm speaking to you like brethren and sister, whatever. Things are coming our way. Because people are that bad. I've seen the way they treat animals. They'll treat you and me like that. And they have. For no other reason. No other reason. They don't like you or me. Just because I am. I shouldn't occupy a space on this earth. The monsters are here. Hell isn't there. It's here. And as long as somebody's suffering, as long as one person is suffering, it's hell. Because that match ignites, and then you've got the problem. A world where someone like Kyle Rittenhouse can get himself freed from that. You know what would have happened if Kyle Rittenhouse had been African American. You know that. I know that. Schrader wouldn't have done anything for him. Though he would probably tell you something different. It's not just the malaise. All right, I'm going to take a quick peek. I haven't looked at the comments at all in a long time today, so I'll start from the newest and work my way back. Then I got to sign off. Got another 11 minutes here. Foggy Ozark, welcome. I have neighbors right across the street that suck. Yeah, yeah. I'm sure they've either got a "Don't Tread on Me" sign or Trump this and that, or a huge American flag, which is probably bigger than half of their home, as if they're more American than you are. Yeah, well, Martin Luther King, yeah, and we know what they did to him, didn't they? Martin Luther King, it's funny how people just associate it, just with rights for African Americans. No, Martin Luther King, it really had nothing to do with color. It did in a certain sense that, we knew where the majority of the problem was, but he did it for everybody. For you and for me. He got it. Judged on your character, not the color of your skin. He got it. And look what they did. Because they didn't want somebody who was that good. I don't know anything about the milkshakes, folks, here. Veg, good to see you, Veg. I saw your video today. Good stuff. There's also a large portion of the population whose personality makes authoritarians attracted to them. They get brainwashed very easily. Yeah, and they're the ones that could go down to the store and get themselves an AR-15. And if they're real lucky, they'll live someplace in Wisconsin where Bruce Schrader is the acting judge, and they can just put lead through skin. They'll start with the animals. I can guarantee you that Kyle Rittenhouse was shooting rabbits and squirrels and birds to start off with. Watching on my 16, wow, cool. I keep thinking everybody's like watching on their phone. Shit. Jeff, hey, okay, these are. Okay. Keep getting the zombies at bay. Logic and reason will be the way to these logic and reasoning. Here's the thing, Epi. You think that. But there's the element of emotion. And most of what they're going by is emotion. It's kind of like a lust. A lust for what they want. It's like lust in general. It's this momentary thing that you'll just do anything you feel you've got to do until you start lusting something else. Judy, our government went after the Black Panther Party until many fled the country, but they can't do the same for the white. Yeah, it was interesting, but the Black Panthers, when they started arming themselves in Oakland, right? It was Oakland, I believe. I guess it was Reagan was the governor at the time. He's the one that against that. Now all of a sudden, well, they have guns now, so let's then guns aren't good, right? Ugh. Yeah, it just makes me sick. I have an aunt who's a Trumper. I haven't spoken with her in 3 years. Yeah, it seems like we all have that, either haven't speaking with him or you just, like myself, one of them, I just scream at him. He screams at me. I don't even know why I do it. In fact, there are times when I don't speak with him. Oh, the anger. Veg, I never mentioned Trump or Biden. I just dropped hints. Seemed to respond okay. Judy, I'd be nervous too, mainly because of these crazies with guns. Right, they're with guns and they're trigger happy, right? Wouldn't you be afraid if you were like a turkey, a wild turkey, or a deer? You know, they're crazy. You know that they'll kill animals. They'll kill you. They'll kill me. Yeah, for good reason. You have to sleep with one eye open wide with these people. When I see a pickup truck and I see one of those Confederate flags, I gotta watch. I got a certain tension there, you know. And I've seen it, believe it or not, in southern New Jersey. I've seen it. I mean, it's almost hard to believe, but you would think there's some areas in southern New Jersey. If you're not from this area, most of you aren't from southern New Jersey. It looks like someplace in the middle of Alabama or Arkansas. Not to put those states down, but, you know, it's like deliverance. Right, and that's what I'm saying, Veg. Yeah, they don't respond to logic. I think you need a little bit of emotion within your logic to kind of make your point. And that's what made, you know, obviously James Kirk so effective, because there's this element of emotion that helps push, you know, that. But with these people, would this be rude to say they like being stupid? It's a lot easier to be stupid, right? Laura, I camouflaged my patio with red and white blue chairs. Good disguise. Yeah. I was in a hospital this is Jeff. I was in a hospital for 3 days this week. Hope you're doing better, Jeff. I was in a hospital for 3 days this week. My roomie, I'm pretty sure, was a Trumper. I just left seeds of knowledge with him. Yeah. Yeah, but don't be surprised if he took down your name. I don't want to get you scared, but, you know. Veg, it's not just the USA. We have terrible problems in Canada. It's looking like we're headed to an extreme right government. After I see that, I'm not a Canadian, but I can't. Although I can believe it because, like I said, Canadians. I don't see any real difference between Canadians and Americans. You know, it's just like if you just looked at the geography, I don't see much difference. But I do politically. I mean, maybe just looking from the outside in, Veg. It seems to me, you know, Canada's always been a liberal government, and they've always seemed to do the right thing when the time came. Now, maybe I'm wrong, but I'd hate to think that Canada would turn right. In fact, I even said that, and this was no joke. I said this truthfully on Divided We Stand Facebook page. I said, Biden's going to need NATO if things get out of hand in 2024. And what do I mean by that? And I mean it truthfully. Whether the enemy is domestic or foreign, the only way I think we could deal with an armed Republican republic, or whatever you want to call it, because, you know, the military, it would fracture itself. You know, you've got your General Flynn's there, and, you know, some really right-wing Trumpers that would do, I think, given a chance, they would flip. I think Biden would actually have to talk with France and Germany and England, Spain, and say, look, we're going to lose a country here. We need you, we'll work all together as troops, because there's going to be civil unrest in the country. And we've got a lot of people here who are armed to the teeth. And the only thing they understand is force. Because they're willing to use it. They're just not willing to get forced out. See what I'm saying? And the only way you can do that is with an overwhelming force. And you can't do that with a military that may splinter. So you say, we need Canadian troops, French troops, English troops, American troops. Have like our, you know, if you can't get the army completely together, you know, you have your, your Peace Corps, so to speak, whatever it is. I think you need your friends. We needed it during the revolution, right? I know this sounds absurd. Most of you probably saying, well, Brian, you're going a little too far on this one. And maybe I am. But I see how things get taken too far. And sooner or later you got to do something. And I haven't seen anybody do anything yet. As much as I am impressed with Judge Chutkan, she hasn't put Trump in his place yet. I want his ass in prison just for the shit he's been saying. And I don't have faith that Biden's going to have the balls to do what he has to do. But I'm saying we're going to need help from Canada. And if Canada is having problems with the right, then I don't know what to say. Because I hate to think, North is the place everybody wanted to go in Vietnam, right? We need Canada. Canadian troops would be a real big help. I'd feel pretty good having Canadian troops coming down to South Jersey. Help me out. Help each other out, you know what I mean? Like I say, I can't, maybe, just like I mentioned to you, my father when I was 5 and basically telling me how the world's going to be for me. Maybe in the same way, this whole world's changing now. That maybe we all have to sit down and be the father and say, okay, this thing gets really out of hand. And that fear, the way to overcome it is you have to be logical and say, okay, we've got to, if there's going to be an evil force, and there are evil forces. This is not the devil. These are real devils. There has to be an answer to that. The good have to do something. Have to. Because there's some really evil people. And they've been here, obviously. There was an occasion with American flags and patriot. Yeah, I am too, Judy. And I would see that as kind of, a signal, a dog whistle, out there. Yeah, I get it completely. American Epi. And by the way, again, Epi, thank you for watching. I know it's really early in the morning in Scotland, so thank you. American democratic representation is a far out construct compared to demoskratia, the people rule power, right? Well, the representation, it's a representative democracy, number one, of course, we know that. And that game has been played out the wrong way with gerrymandering. So already there are flaws in the system and the Electoral College. Your vote really didn't count in 2000. Who knows what happened in 2016? And almost the question is, are the good too weak to do something? DeJoy, Biden, DeJoy. Well, Stewart, he absolutely he can't fire DeJoy. That's a position that is unfireable. The commission has to get rid of him, and they're not going to get rid of him. I don't know what else to do. Send him to the Outer Hebrides to have his office. I don't know. It can't do it. Yeah, Rudi, he's a sick. Yeah, he doesn't wear that hair dye anymore, does he? Probably goes to some salon to get it done. Kemp threw out 200,000 votes from. Yeah, there you go. There it is. An illegal thing that was made legal. That is voter suppression. You're right. I'm sorry I'm not keeping up with these in time, folks. Me too. I'm up past my bedtime. I don't get grumpy. I get mean. Haha. Good night. Lisa was here, but she had to leave. All right, I'll take a look at a few more comments, and I'm going to sign off for tonight, folks. And see what we have here. Foggy Ozark 2 go. They put a mannequin in their window with an AR-15 pointing at my... Oh, Jesus. Foggy. He says Ozark. Do you live in the Ozarks? Because that's kind of scary. Oh, God. Don't worry. I'm not worried about the spellings here. That's the least of our problems. We just need to communicate. And I understood it completely. I misspell all the time. All right, I'm not worried about spellings here. Folks, you can misspell on here. It's okay. Because I will. If a nightmare scenario that is that Trump makes it the election and gets voted in 2024, too much rides on that to complicate that level of fascism, right? Well, that's what you will get. We will have a king, and he will not be benevolent. Fascism is a byproduct of unregulated capitalism. Either one's bad. Whether it's the connection, I don't know, but it sounds about right. Yeah, it sounds about right. But, yeah. I felt evil presence in my house some years back, so I said, Satan, the Lord commands you to leave this house. And then my wife told me not to talk to her mom like that. Yeah. The real evil are the people. That's, you know. If you're a religious person, I'm sorry, I don't believe in Satan. We're bad enough. She's got a hard on for me. It's taken 3 years for me to get used to her trying to run me over and hearing her say, spying, when I put neighbor's dumpster back in his ditch that was blowing down the road. You're you're trespassing. Get off my land! That kind of thing, yeah? We have that here. Gotta get these comments. Judy, I've noticed Caucasian brothers and sisters go out of their way to be over-friendly so they won't be roped in with the MAGA. I've noticed the Caucasian brothers and sisters go out of their way to be over-friendly so they won't be roped in with the MAGA. I wish they would just be themselves, you know. I mean, I think people understand that no matter what color you are. Just don't phony anything. Just be yourself and be good. Oh, it's like 2 + 2. I've always found like fear people is a form of racism, and I just don't think you get good people are good people. And keeps trying to run me over. She's leaving when I get to, yeah. Just kind of like pray for her now. I'm used to it. In here, Foggy. I feel about Trudeau. I get that. True that. I don't hate Trudeau. He's pretty a normal establishment politician, but he's not too bad, right? He's not Trump, that's for sure. Watched TV a few times. What is At Divided We Stand? I watched at TV a few times now. Again, if you're unfamiliar with the channel, this is called Divided We Stand on YouTube. Please subscribe. Hit the notification bell so this video, it'll pop up on your notifications. And we also are on Facebook called Divided We Stand. You have to agree to the rules. That is, you got to agree to certain things. Don't be rude and be abusive, and you can't be a Trumper. And come on, you can't cut down the Democratic Party. I mean, in other words, you can't just act like a Republican going out against the Democrats. We have a tiny army compared to most countries, yeah, but we know how the Canadians fight. I mean, anybody who knows what happened in World War II on the beaches of Normandy. Yeah, my uncle remembered. I mean, my uncle was a war hero, and I think he remembered. He remembered the Australian troops, and he remembered the Canadian troops. In fact, one of my dad's good friends, his name was Elmer, whatever. He was Jewish. He lived in West Philadelphia, and he was originally from Montreal, Canada, and he went back to Canada to fight with the Royal Air Force. I think he was on something like 20-some missions, and then he died. I can't remember his last name, but he was a good friend of my father's. He died maybe at the age of 22. He died with, as a pilot for the Royal Canadian Air Force. Yeah. Very brave young man. He wanted to be Elmer Aaron was his name. You look up on the internet, Elmer Aaron, 2 A's, Canadian Air Force. And there are all kind of awards for him and memorials. And I actually sent the Canadian government pictures from his high school because it had, where he lived in Philly. I thought it was just kind of important because there was just so little, aside from the fact that, there was a little memorial there, that they should know who he was. I mean, now, there's a yearbook here somewhere. Oh, for God's sakes. Yearbook from 1939. My mother's yearbooks. Can't lose this, that's for sure. Oh, here it is. All right. This is a yearbook from 1939. Elmer Aaron. He's Canadian. He drew this. There you see, over here, Elmer Aaron. And this is my father's yearbook. And it's funny, too, because everybody was poor in West Philly. And the one thing my father said is that it was a wonderful high school experience. And everybody got along, no matter what color. It was just, a rare thing. And here, you'll see my dad put a K next to it because so many of his friends died in the war. This was Elmer Aaron. Again, my dad put a K there, or a D for dead, or something like that. Yeah, D for dead. My dad wasn't. And he put killed. But interestingly enough, talking about the Canadian Air Force, he says here he wanted to be a commercial artist. He was in the art club, vice president and president, fire drill committee. So he's involved in school. He's from Montreal High in Montreal, Canada. And he went to fight for Canada, for the Royal Canadian Air Force. And he flew a lot of missions. And I know where he was shot down. I think he was shot down over Germany or Belgium, or something like that. I think Germany he was shot down. Real hero. Never lived past the age of 22 or whatever. Yeah, look it up sometime, folks, on the internet. Just Google Elmer Aaron, Canada. He fought. And he could have stayed in the States and waited a year or two. Nothing doing. 1939. The war started in 41 for us. But he was already getting involved. Yeah. Cohen says Trump's superpower is getting dirt on people and using it. Well, yeah, he'll do anything, right? That's what the Russians did. The KGB used to do. You just get somebody in the hotel. Can they get him for being a liar, sex, money? However they can embarrass you 20 years later, they'll do it. Yeah, and that's an old tool of the KGB. Okay, you're part of the Commonwealth, and we, the Brits, have got nukes. Yes, the Brits do have nukes, so if the Russians decide to try to pick on England, the best they can do is tie, right? Because there'll be a coming from London, and those things will be a flying, and there'll be a hitting, like a good right cross. They'll hit you. You remember, if you think about England, I don't want to get into the history lesson, but they basically went it alone against a superpower. Alone. Strange for you too. Okay, the body we stand. The name of is kind of South America is completely divided. Yeah, I am a teacher. That's correct. Yes, cool. I have my own theory. Trump, Stone, and MAGA already have a plan to steal the. Yes, I would agree with you 100%, Judy. That's my understanding of what will happen. They are so angry that Biden won because the Biden is commander-in-chief. This is why you don't see too many of them showing up at Trump rallies anymore, because they know that they can be shot at back. They like to have a rigged game. They're only going to go into war if they've got the guns and nobody else does. Remember the nurse on this channel? Yes, we did have a nurse, didn't we? I don't remember completely, but we did have a nurse. We always have all different types of professions here. Co-host was an host. Oh, that was Paul. In fact, I spoke with Paul today. Not on the phone, but I did message him. We're thinking of doing a reality report. Not so often, but, yeah. But, yeah. Branson? Missouri? I don't know. Go look up. Ozarkian here. Okay, the Ozarks. My parents went through the Ozarks. A long time ago. It wasn't that bad, but I'm not sure fighting fire on fire will work. Yeah, I would agree with you, but you have to do something. But yeah, they've got the firepower, and they'll cheat and all that stuff. Yeah, neighbors. Yeah, stay safe. Fight like a lawyer. Yeah. He's only 23. Oh, wow. You got a lot of years ahead of you with this son of a gun. Cotton Branson, I ain't talked to her for a while. Yeah. My parents went to Branson, too. Like, at least places my parents hung out, They took a trip out to the west, went to see what the Ozarks were like. They went through Branson, Missouri. I wouldn't like Branson. I'm going to see, like, Bobby Vinton sing past his prime. I couldn't do that. I don't like, in general, I have a tough time watching musicians and singers who are past their prime. It just... Elmer Aaron, yeah. Montreal. Now, it didn't say Montreal originally in Canada, but this is the information. This is that he was from... In fact, they even had the street, I think, where he was in Montreal. He went to Montreal High. No, had the street where he went to school. Fought a lot of missions, too. It wasn't like he did 2 and he was gone. He fought a lot of missions. Small guy. My dad said he was a wonderful person. In fact, the one thing that my dad did tell me, because my dad was in the war for 4.5 years in the Pacific, he said, my dad was like, my dad died almost at the age of 93, but he had a dream when he was around 90 or 91. He dreamt that he saw Elmer, and he said it was really sad about the dream is Elmer was Elmer. He was 18. Yeah. Those kind of dreams aren't not one of those happy ones, you know what I mean? Like you kind of realize, well, you're back. Like when you dream of a deceased relative. Like for many, you say, whoa, I thought you're here? That kind of thing. You wake up, feeling not so great. Buffering, okay. Yeah, look him up. He's got to be in there. You got to put in like Canadian Air Force, Elmer Aaron. He's in there. He's in there. But he was from West Philly High, and he loved West Philadelphia High School. Like I said, it was. My father remembered a football game where they played like, I guess it was South Catholic High in Philly, and he said there were like a lot of racists on the other team, and he said one game was just brutal, and he said, they were trying to survive. They had a good team, West Philly, but some of their teammates were injured, but there's a lot of camaraderie. And he said the one great thing, black, white, wherever you're from, Jewish, not Jewish, he said we had a wonderful group of kids. And he says, as much as he saw anti-Semitism and racism, my father, he always saw it. So he said, where he was with his class at West Philly, It was not there. And he meant that. He meant that. We all got along. We were all poor. And I think it had a lot to do with the staff that was there at the time. He said we had a lot of good people. And they were ahead of their time. And I trust my father on that because he was not a liar. But he said it was really sad with Elmer. There were others who died too, of course. But Elmer went early. You know, he gave his life. And like I said, you know, look what he cared about. He's a Canadian. He believed in this. And his name's lost in the crowd now. You know, nobody knows who he is. Nobody. Maybe not even in Canada. But that's an 18-year-old kid who gives his life, who believed in democracy. And he gets it taken away because the Nazis kill him. The Trumpers of Germany, they kill him. Elmer got it. He never became the artist. This is the extent of Elmer Aaron today. That's it. That's the last vestige of somebody who cared. Tonight, August the 19th, 2023. This is how Elmer Aaron lives. Through you. Somebody at least. And you know what? If he had been alive today, he'd be real happy. I know it. My dad said he was such a good guy. He really cared. He really cared. He really cared. All right, we're all hurt and damaged with Trump, Bush. Yeah, but let's not forget about George Bush. And I don't even get into Reagan tonight, but, you know, Bush was bad enough. There's a lot of crap to even talk about with him. Getting the old band together, really, the Reality Report reunion. Yeah, I think we will. We'll do a show, maybe once every 2 weeks. Paul and I have been able to, I guess, work. We're good friends, you know. Just, you know, what happened is, you know, just what happened. And it was, and I blame Trump. And Paul's not a Trumper or anything like that, but it's just the way that I had to go with things. You know, the way I saw it had to be, something had to be done. And, you know, just it had its effect. But Paul and I are good friends, and he's a great person, and he's a great friend, just like Dave is. So we'll do something. I had Michigan people with strong accents at the station ask me how much farther to Branson. Oh my God, the hillbilly voice kicked in. Sure, Branson was a letdown after meeting me. We got that Midwestern twang, not that Southern drawl. Believe in Democracy would be a great book title for his life. Yeah. But Judy, was so sad because I know my dad, you know, like he insisted, you know, on telling me about friends and good people. He was just, he came from such a simple background, but he had it right, you know, and he kept talking about Elmer, you know, he was such a good kid. He was a good kid. And then his senior year, he takes off to go back to Canada to fight for the Royal Air Force, which then was under with Britain. So essentially he was fighting in British planes for the Royal Air Force. But that time it's still under the auspices of, I guess, the Canadian Air Force. He went. He gave everything. I forget. You'll see it. If you look him up and you find the amount of missions he flew, I don't know. I forget. I looked it up a couple years ago. But I sent it to the government of Canada, and they used it. They took some of these pictures somewhere. So if you're able to find it on Google, they took the pictures. They knew it was, you know, it was real. This was no bullshit. Twang, that a Super City has some good food. Plug gives you an R and wash. Yeah. Well, by the way, when I went to Bowling Green, Ohio, I remember I was talking to a buddy of mine, and he heard somebody in the background say, "Did you do your wash?" Now, Ohio's it's pretty much normal English, but there's that R thing that happens, and people could say the same thing about Philadelphia or New Jersey, Jersey. Like, most people in New Jersey don't speak like that. And it's right near, New York City, yes, or Brooklyn, but no. But there is a South Jersey thing. We all got that. I can get beyond that kind of stuff, just as long as somebody's a decent person. That's all that matters. Lots of attractions here. I just like the Lake Street. Yeah, I'm sure it's a great place, I'm sure it's, and a lot of great people, I'm sure. You've got your Elmer Aarons out there. And we've got our Trumpers here. So, I'm not here to cast aspersions in all places, because my county is pretty messed up. I like the immediate area of Bridgeton. I feel good about that politically, but other areas, I don't know. Canadians tend to forget. Well, this kid was a hero. Now, again, he lived in Philly. He went to high school in Philly, but he came to West Philly around 10th grade or something like that. And he became like the popular guy. He got involved in everything. Just a good guy. I don't think he had a girlfriend his whole life. He's, and he died. And just the idea. He's listed in, okay, there you go, Canadian Jewish Heritage page. Do they have it under military, though? Judy, if you can check. Yeah, but my father said he was a good friend. And my father lost a lot of friends, He had another friend who, I guess it was less than 2 weeks before the end of World War II, a German sniper, a Nazi sniper, got him in Belgium. And then they had a ceremony in Philadelphia. He said there wasn't a dry eye there. It was just somebody was hanging out in the trees, right? And I'm talking 8 days before the end of the war. And somebody put a bullet through his head. I mean, look, these stories are replete everywhere. Mine's just my story, and I don't want to take away from everybody else's stories, because it happens everywhere. It really was a great generation. There's some assholes too, I'm sure, but yeah. So democracy. So anyway, folks, it's getting real late. Please, I only expected to be on an hour, and it's already 2.5 hours. Jeez. Well, I'm very appreciative of you guys hanging around. Under Aaron, Elman Oscar. That's him. That would be him. But that's good old West Philadelphia High School. West Philadelphia. And by the way, the athletic director, before my father died, my father could not afford, he played for the football team, varsity. He's a good player. But he couldn't afford the letter. The letter at the time cost around 50 cents for $1, but his parents had nothing. My grandfather was screwed up physically from World War I as an immigrant from Russia. My grandmother was always sick, so he had no money. I told the story to the AD. She still may be the AD in West Philly right now. Wonderful, what they did for us. So I said to the AD, I said, look, my father never got his letter because he couldn't afford it. And I explained the story. And she said, look, I'm going to look in the yearbooks just to verify that he played for the varsity team. And if I find it, I'm going to send you one free of charge. Well, a couple days later, I got the West Philly letter. In fact, I have it here somewhere. So my dad's 91, and my wife and I, we knew it was the best gift we could give him. So we put it in a box covered in cellophane, just a letter. My dad's sitting on the couch. He's 91 years old. I said, Dad, we got a birthday gift for you. He didn't know what it was. He thought it was going to be a sweater. So he starts opening up the box. And at first he doesn't realize it. And he kept looking at it. He saw the W. And it could have been W for anything, really, And he said, oh, my God. And he started crying. My dad wasn't a crier. Believe me, he wasn't a crier. I saw my dad cry twice in my life. When my dog died and when his younger cousin died. And he said, he was choking up. He said, "That's the best gift I've ever gotten in my life." And I said, "I mean it." Because he knew how much he wanted that letter. He loved playing football. And the fact that he earned a letter, but he didn't have the letter. And to see my father cry, I think it was the best. I mean, if I had to look at any one thing in my life with my father that I could look back and smile, was the time he got that letter. Because high school meant everything to him. For other people, his sister didn't like high school. But he loved high school. He loved people. And that was a wonderful, wonderful high school. It still is. And of course, now I think it's rebuilt. But he remembered how good the people were. Good to each other. Especially that game where they had to literally survive. They were brothers in arms in that game. But yeah. So anyway, Elmer Aaron. I'm glad I shared that with you. I was the only one who knew who he was. When I sent the thing to the Canadians, I'm sure it was a shock to them. But it hit me when I saw this. When I saw him, with the Statue of Liberty, and that's from a Canadian. He got it. You get it. Anyway. Thank you, everybody. It's a pleasure speaking with you. We'll see you next time. For those of you who remember the reality report, I'll try to update. I'll talk to Paul, and I don't know if it'll be a political thing at all. I doubt it, but always something good. Paul's very, he's a brilliant guy, and it'll be good to have that going on too. So we'll see what happens. All right. Thank you, everybody. Thank you. See you.